Good afternoon and welcome to this week's Chamber Chat. I am your host, Colin Diaz, President and CEO of the Culver City Chamber. And today I am joined by Scarlett Cazares, who is with the Census Bureau. You have probably seen a lot of our e-blasts that we've sent out almost one a month since the pandemic started in regards to the census. I'm happy to be joined by her because I want her to share a little bit more about what she does, what the census is, how to complete it, and why it should be something you consider important. So with that, Scarlett, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So like you said, I'm Scarlett. I'm a partnership specialist with the 2020 census through the US Census Bureau. Essentially, as a partnership specialist, what I do is, our partnership specialists work with trusted voices in the community so that you can help educate and empower communities to respond to the census by emphasizing three things about the census. That the census is easy to complete, that census responses are always kept safe and confidential, and that responding to the census is incredibly important to our communities.
So let's touch on that last part you just mentioned about it being important to the communities. What, for somebody, you talk to people, whether it's about, voting and polling, and there's a myriad of thoughts about how pertinent or important. And I know a little bit about the census and why it's important, but share with our listeners why they should complete the census and what that result does for our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's incredibly important to participate in the census, and it really breaks down to two things. It's money and power in our communities. Every year, more than $675 billion in federal funding is distributed based on the census count that is taken once every 10 years. It impacts funding for things like schools and education and libraries, healthcare facilities, public transportation, and it's used to make decisions at all levels of government. And then additionally, accurate census data helps businesses make stronger decisions. It helps nonprofits better serve their communities. Census data really touches every single one of our lives on a day-to-day basis. And this year in 2020 is our one chance for the next decade to make sure that we're counting ourselves.
I mean, it's kind of unfathomable to think about, because I know, looking at the numbers, just the population growth from 2010 to 2020, and the turnover. So you have people that are coming into the community that are new, people that are leaving the community. There's new jobs, there's different needs. For the example, you and I were talking about this before. The pandemic we're dealing with is as horrendous as it is. If this happened in 2010, from a technology standpoint, we would be severely, we would not be able to maintain, at least at the level we are now, on, say, a platform like a Zoom or what we utilize through phone. So as it relates to the next 10 years, so this process takes place now. It's going to inform funding and power up until essentially 2030. That seems powerful enough that somebody should want to participate. What do the rates look like? Is this something that generally you get is it 100% of people? I'd probably imagine not. Is it 20%? What percentage of people generally fill this out, or where are we at now?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So across the United States, most people have responded. What I will say is that here in Los Angeles County, obviously, we all are dealing with a lot with these COVID rates and things like that. But we are a little bit below here in LA County, the national average. So it is even more important for us here as community members, who really care about about our futures and the futures of our families and communities, that we do everything we can to encourage your networks to respond. If you own a business or work for an organization, your membership and clients and customers to respond. I'm actually going to show you, we have a response rate map. So everybody has access to this public map where you can actually go online to view the response rates in different geographies. So you can view the California-wide response rates. You can review, Culver City response rates. You can even review it down to the census tract. So your neighborhood, essentially,
Nice.
census tracts contain about 4,000 people. Your neighborhood, you can see the response rates from the people around you. So it gives us a really good opportunity to target our outreach. Do you want me to share that right now? I can share
Please,
my
that'd be
screen.
great. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So.
And while you're loading that, you'd mentioned something that I thought was pretty powerful as far as a call to action for organizations or for companies. If you wouldn't mind, as you're loading that, I know in the past, 2010 and even before that, it was a paper application or paper submission. Do you mind sharing on how that's changed over the last, this go around, and how we've come into the 21st century, as you've said?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, we're really. This year we have 3 ways to respond to the 2020 census, which makes it easy and accessible. So we can respond online for the first time to the decennial census online at 2020census.gov. We can also respond by phone. The census has toll-free numbers in multiple languages to help you respond to the census. And you can also respond by mail. So you've probably received your questionnaire in the mail. You can go ahead and fill it out and send it back. And those are the 3 ways you can self-respond. Okay, I'm so sorry. I was a little bit distracted by trying to pull this up.
No problem.
But yes, phone, mail, and internet, not email. You cannot respond by email. Okay, so what we have here is if you go to 2020census.gov/response rates, you can actually see the response rates in your area. So what we have here is 2020census.gov/response rates. You can see the national response rate. Can you see my screen?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, national response rate is 62%. Like I said, most people across the country have responded. So you can see here, there are different filters that you can use. So you can select your state. Let's go to California. And then I'm just going to pull up the county-wide numbers. You can get more specific if you'd like by going down to the city level or the census tract, congressional district, etc. But we'll just do the Los Angeles County for now. And you can see.
Oh, yeah.
Los Angeles County. Yeah, so we're a little bit behind. The map doesn't seem like it's completely loading, but you can see the self-response rates right there. So, like I said, it's crucially important that we get that count up.
I have a quick question. Right now, when it was loading the map, it said that we're at 58.2%, and then right below that, it said that 49.1% was internet. Is that 49.1% of the 58%? So essentially, 50% of the respondents have done it online.
Yeah, that's right. So the preferred method so far for the 2020 census has been online response. So like you said, I'm really glad that we do have that option this time around. I don't know what the response rates would look like if folks weren't responding online, but we do have a long way to go. And it's important to remember that online response isn't your only option. You can respond by mail, you can respond by phone as well.
Right. So while you're sharing your screen, let's say that I am one of the, I don't know, what is that, 50+%, or excuse me, 40+%. So I'm a part of the 41% that has not completed the census in LA County. How would I go about doing that if I decide I want to do it online and not call someone over the phone or mail something in?
Great question. So the easiest thing to do is to go to 2020census.gov. I'll show you. And what you can do here is choose your language. There are 13 different languages that you can respond in. And if you speak a language that is not one of the 13 most frequently spoken languages in the United States, then there are additional language guides in 59 languages. So
Wow.
choose your language, and then you can click here, shape your future, right? Start here, respond. And this is the start questionnaire, landing page.
So you just
Essentially,
click on through.
what was that?
So you just kind of click on through and enter your information.
Click on through, and then you're good to go. Note that what you will see is when you click respond now, it will ask you for your 12-digit census ID. And you got sent this 12-digit census ID in the mail when you started receiving all of those, census mailings. However, if you cannot find your census ID, you can click here if you do not have a census ID, and it'll just connect it'll geocode your address instead of using the census ID, so you can still respond without a census ID.
So if you do this, it would behoove you to be sitting in your physical address at the time of doing that, correct?
Oh, no. So I'm sorry. No, it doesn't matter where you're doing it. If you're.
Oh, you're entering your address and it's geo.
Entering your address.
Got it. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was actually pulling it in real time or if it was.
No, yeah. Thank you so much for clarifying. Yes. So you can just enter your address rather than using your census ID, and your census will still get counted.
Wonderful. So just a couple last quick questions, because this has been immensely helpful, and I'm going to get it so that it's just, we're back to the two of us. So call to action, if you're an individual that has not completed the census yet, it seems pretty easy either to call in, to go online, or to mail in your actual paper app. You've given away if you've lost that 12-digit code. I know that I, for a while, had misplaced mine, so it took a few extra days to start. I didn't know there was another way to go around it, but
yeah.
So there's a call to action there. For communities that are still trying to improve on that, I know our mayor and our former mayor had put out a challenge to our community before, as far as filling out the census. And I want to say Culver City, it was around 70 or 70 something at the time. I know we were one of the higher cities on the west side, but for those that are, ultimately Culver City or LA being higher than others in the state is a positive, but it doesn't necessarily, we want the whole state to be as completed as possible, and obviously the country, so they have a great outlook. So the last question that I have, how long of a process is this? If it's taken every 10 years, is the window closing this month? Do you have till the end of the year?
Such a good question. So originally, before COVID, the deadline to respond was July 31st. Now we have extended the deadline to give Americans more time to respond to the census, and the deadline to respond is October 31st.
Okay.
However, you want to get it done as soon as possible and just get it out of your way and know that you've counted yourself for your community. It should not take anyone more than 10 minutes to respond. Right. There are only 9 questions and 3 ways to do it. So I definitely encourage you to do it sooner rather than later.
No, I agree. As somebody that has used the online platform, I found it to be extremely easy, but also convenient, because I was not looking forward to sending in a paper app. Plus, I can only imagine somebody reading all the penmanship, mine particularly. So the online version is probably a lot easier. So yeah. I thank you for joining us today. The only other thing that I'd like to ask, if you're open to it, and we can put it at the end of this interview as well, is if you're open to sharing your email address, if people have more questions, or if there's other, Culver City has a little over 300 nonprofits and, a few thousand businesses and neighborhood associations. So I very easily could see an opportunity, if that's a need, and even expanding outside of Culver City for particular presentations. I'm sure that you and some of your colleagues do presentations on the importance, or have conversations about that.
Yeah, and I would love to be contacted with questions or exactly presentations, requests, anything. I will. I'll just say my email now, and then if you want to
We'll have
forward
it
it
up
out.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. So my email is Scarlett.Cazares at 2020census.gov. I think you can see the way my name is spelled here on Zoom, but it's SCARLETT.CAZARES at 2020census.gov. I am always happy to answer questions, always happy to provide presentations. And always happy to remind you, in addition to responding to the census, there's, you can always post on social media and link the 2020 census to your website. And, there's a lot you can do to encourage self-response in your community. So feel free to reach out to me or Colin, and, we can absolutely chat about how to get this response rate up.
I appreciate that. Appreciate your time and your work on this, because ultimately you are serving a multitude of communities, many of which you may not ever meet the individual residents, but over the next 10 years, they will greatly benefit from the results of this. So thank you for joining me today, and thank you all for listening in. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me, and you'll also be able to reach Scarlett. And if you haven't finished or completed your census yet, please complete that as soon as possible and share with your friends and those that you associate with at work. So with that, we will conclude today's chamber chat, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.